So with no further ado, I want to go ahead and jump right into our conversation. We're so thankful right now. We have 254 of you joining us live. We know many are going to watch this in the days to come, able to join live, but we are excited you're here. Thank you. Thank you for taking time to be part of this. We honor you for your ministry in your local church and your involvement in this learning session tonight. I'm also excited that we have with us tonight two of my friends and coworkers who are going to help us walk through this conversation. So first, I'd like to introduce Elizabeth Lloyd. Elizabeth works with us here at Pentecostal Publishing House. She's also a children's pastor here in the St. Louis area. You will probably recognize her from VBS. She has been a driving force behind VBS for Pentecostal Publishing House, and I'm sure you've seen videos where she has talked about VBS. In fact, the three of us did a Facebook video a few weeks back talking about what's going on with VBS in this crazy world. Scroll through Pentecostal Publishing House Facebook and take advantage of that. I know it'll be a blessing to you. I'm also excited to have with us Chris Anderson, that masked bandit. There he is, the unveiling, right? Chris is the children's editor for UPCI. He works with us here at Pentecostal Publishing House, managing all of the levels of children's curriculum that involves Word of Flame, that involves the Discipleship Project, and all the other great things that we try to do to equip you to minister to the children in your local church. So I'm so excited. You're all here. I'm excited Chris and Elizabeth are here to take part in this conversation. Here's the thing. We know we're in unprecedented times. I could elaborate, but I don't have to. You know, this has just rocked our worlds, all of us. What we want to do, though, is recognize in the face of this very difficult season, God still has purpose for us, and there's ministry to do. We want to give you some practical help tonight. We also want to challenge you a little bit. We want to say first and foremost before we get going that we respect that your local church may have a unique situation that's different from even the church on the other side of your city. All of us are in unique situations based on our local governing restrictions, based on what's happening in our church, our congregation. And so above all else, we want to acknowledge the role of the pastor in the local church. And everything that we're sharing tonight, the strategies we're going to give to you, we want to recommend that you have a conversation with your local pastor to talk about how you can implement this in your local church. We respect and honor the role of our pastors, and I know you do too. So with everything we're talking about, feel free to take this talk with your pastor and adapt it to work in your unique church. All right, here we go. Tonight, our goal is to equip you. We have intentionally titled this A New Vision for Sunday School. Now that's a bold statement. I'm going to go ahead and start right now by throwing this to Chris Anderson, our children's editor. Chris, what do we mean by a new vision for Sunday school?
Thank you, Leanne. Last year, there was a group of UPCI children's ministers, including myself, that we all felt like God was speaking to us, telling us that 2020 was going to be unprecedented, that God was planning an unprecedented children's revival. So much so that if you go to the children's ministry website right now, you're going to see a banner that says 1 million children's revival, because we are expecting big things in 2020, and we were not expecting the COVID crisis. And well, God said he wanted to have an unprecedented revival, and in order to have an unprecedented revival, you need to have an unprecedented event. So check one for God. We have an unprecedented event, and so now we're all there feeling like we're hamstrung, wondering what to do. It feels like our churches have been torn down, and I've got good news. We're right where God wants us to be. This wasn't a surprise, and I believe that right now God is preparing the fields for the harvest. So instead of feeling frustrated and wondering what next, it's important that we get into the Spirit and prayerfully ask God, what are we supposed to do next? Yes, things are not going as we planned, but God does have a plan. And so now as children's ministers, it's important that we prayerfully evaluate our ministries and look for the things that have changed for the better. And as I was praying about a word for the children's ministers of encouragement, God spoke very simple words to me. He just said, be fruitful and multiply. That if we just pray, God, how can I be fruitful and multiply? That is God's desire for our ministries. The mission hasn't changed. The methods that we were relying on have been pulled out from under us, but I believe that this gives us an opportunity. And I also believe as a curriculum provider, the curriculum gives you the best systematic method for presenting the Word of God to your children. So you have a new vision, you have a new opportunity. The methods are going to look different and unprecedented, but God, I trust, is going to show each one of us a way to be fruitful and multiply.
I want to follow up on what Chris just said. It would be very tempting right now when everything, as you said, has been pulled out from under us to go, okay, well, I can't do Sunday school, I can't do children's ministry, and so let's just sit back and let's, wait until everything gets back to normal, and then I can minister again. But I believe the people that are taking time tonight to get on this webinar are people who say, I want to minister to these kids. You have a burden for children. Who knows what situations your children are facing in their homes. We don't know what's going on in their lives and all the turmoil that this season has brought. But I appreciate what you're saying, Chris. God is not taken by surprise by what's happened the last 3 months. We can look to him for help right now. I believe he's going to do that. This part of this new vision is saying, God, we're willing to step up and rise to this challenge. Elizabeth, I see you're back. Can we hear you?
No.
Oh no. All right, we're going to keep working with Elizabeth.
How about
and while she's still getting fixed up. Chris, let me ask you. We need to talk about other areas of innovation.
I'll tell
you what you say would help us from this standpoint.
Well, I have been so blown away. If you go to the Facebook teachers groups for the Word of Flame literature, Word of Flame toddler curriculum teachers, beginner curriculum teachers, preteen, the teachers have just done incredible things for overcoming the obstacles that have been thrown their way. And when it first happened, the teachers were a little bit reluctant. I could tell that they were a little bit out of their comfort zone. But as week by week has progressed, the teachers have really found some incredible ways to minister to the home. And I'm telling you, while it feels like this COVID crisis has been a boon to the church growth, it really has given us an opportunity that we've never had before. Because for years we have been praying that God would allow us to get into the homes. And for years, parents are kind of like, well, I'll let you minister to my kid on Sundays and Wednesdays, but I'm not really interested in letting you into our home. And so now, because of what has happened, that we have an opportunity to get into the homes, and it's an exciting opportunity. So as far as this new vision that we were talking about earlier, once we start gathering again the way that we used to gather, it's important that we don't fall back into our old habits. That they worked somewhat, they were good, they worked well, but God is giving us another way, and we've opened the door to the home connection. And it's important as teachers in this new look Sunday school that we keep that door open. And every week we need to find a way to get into the home and minister to the home, and to come alongside the parents and become team members with them.
Well, Chris is just of making sure we're stepping up to the challenge.
Okay.
So Elizabeth, for you, what do we mean by a new vision for Sunday school?
Well, I want to make sure that we are reaching every child. I heard a lot of frustration from teachers, from children's pastors, from different people who say, I'm not getting a lot of engagement from parents. I'm not getting a lot of people interacting with the things that I'm trying to do. If they have done videos, they're not getting a lot of connections. I don't see a lot of views. And I just want to tell you, it's okay. Be consistent, and then find ways to reach those families that maybe you haven't connected with through video. I'm telling you, a lot of parents are just tired. They've been parenting their kids, they've been teaching their kids, they've been doing church at home. It's a lot of work. So just be gracious with your parents, with your families, but find ways that you can reach those kids in different avenues. If you can do Zoom calls, if you can do packets, activity papers, whatever it is, how you can reach them, find those ways and be consistent.
Absolutely right. Very good. Thanks, Elizabeth, for I hear us all saying that This new vision is about stepping forward, rising to the challenge, and finding new ways to minister.
So I'm guessing, Elizabeth, I don't know how much of my question you heard, but have you shared with the group what it's been like to do videos?
I started to.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Leanne?
I can.
Okay, so it's been amazing. I want to tell you how wonderful it's been to be a part of your Sunday school time during the week. It's been so awesome to see the pictures of your kiddos praying and worshiping and interacting with the activity papers. It's so cool to see even comments from around the world. When we started this, this was just out of a need to say, what about the kids? We won't have church. We're not going to have work. What about the kids? And we just, one day we were in the office when this all started, and we could see, something happening. We thought just for a couple of weeks, maybe we could do a couple of lessons online, and it's turned into almost 12 weeks of lessons. But it's been so incredible to do that. And I'm thankful that we've had this opportunity to do that. I also want to reassure all you teachers out there that I know that I'm not replacing you. I have just been honored to help you. So I want to make sure that we encourage you that your kids miss you. They miss you so much, and no one can replace you as their teacher. They want to hear from you. So I hope that in the next couple of weeks, we're going to do some more videos, but I hope that you can get excited and get encouraged to do some videos on your own or do some other types of ministry on your own, and get back to ministry. I know it's been sort of blah lately. I know a lot of us have felt down and felt misplaced, I think. But I think now is the time to grasp what Chris was saying and get excited about the revival.
Amen.
That's excellent. And I want to reassure everyone that we are continuing to monitor the situation, and we are trying to look month to month to see where we are in the crisis. We are going to continue the videos into the month of June, and then we'll reevaluate on a monthly basis and decide if at what point we need to move to a different approach. But for now, we want to continue those videos. So you'll see those continue to come your way. We're going to add a donate button just to help us with the extra investment it takes to make these videos possible. But we're going to keep those videos going, and we're excited about that. But like Elizabeth said, we recognize that we can't replace your vital role in the connections you've built with the children in your church. That's so key. And I think what we're all saying is that we've got to still find ways to do that now, even though our old methods have changed. So video is clearly one of those ways. And so in addition to us offering these videos from PPH, we want to empower you to be able to do those videos as well. Typically, U.S. copyright law would prohibit being able to take video of this material and just broadcast it freely everywhere publicly. But we're waiving all of that right now in this crisis. We want you to be able to use the material, whatever creative way you need to share with the children you minister to. So with that in mind, Elizabeth, why don't you share the method, the process that you've used to create these videos from the curriculum? So those out there that want to create personalized Sunday school videos for their kids, talk them through ways to do that.
Absolutely. So first, I started with the beginner level because I would love to make a video personalized for every age group, but at this point, it's just not possible. So I wanted to go kind of middle of the road, just aim toward the middle. That way younger kids could watch and older kids could also watch. And so I opened up the Word document that is included in your digital resources if you're using Word of Flame curriculum. And I opened that up, and Chris will probably laugh at me a little bit because I have been one to question the need for a Word document. Who's going to use that? You've got your teacher manual. Why would you need to use a Word document? But I see now how important it is. Yes, I'm eating my words. I see how important it is because those Word documents are completely editable. So when you're talking about an in-class situation, you might have time to do a lot of different things and keep it fluid and talk to the kids. But when you're doing a video, you need to pare it down and make it as concise as possible. So those Word documents help you with that. So I went to the Word document, and the first thing that I looked for was the Bible point and the life application. Those are the main points of the lesson. So I wanted everything I did to be centered around those things. So I will follow Jesus. That was this last week's life application. I will follow Jesus. I wanted to make sure everything I taught was based on that. And you need to focus on what you want the kids to really take away from your lesson. Sometimes the lessons are overwhelming because there's so much to do. But whether you're in video lesson mode or if you're in class, those things are Bible point, life application. Those are the things you need to focus on. Teach the parts of the lesson that will translate best through video. If you've worked with video, you know that it's very difficult to interact with people because you're pre-recording it. So you can't ask them questions. You can't hide things around the room and have them find them. You can't do kinds of things like activities like that you normally would do in class. So find the things that will translate best. And incorporate your activity papers. That's when you get to mail those activity papers to them or send them through email. And then they can interact with those pieces while you're teaching. And that will help reinforce the lesson. Also, let's get creative. We don't have to read the lesson. We can, from the Word document, we can get creative. Find object lessons. If your lesson is not going to be so doable through video, like for instance, this last week when we did our video, it was a review lesson. How do you do a review lesson in video? So we had to find a little object lesson to help us, really convey the message that we wanted to send to the kids. So get creative. God gave you all of your creative bones. So let's get creative and use Pinterest. use technology to your advantage. And then think about the parts of your regular Bible lesson in class. You've got your life application. You've got your worship, prayer, your activity paper. These are all things that you could use in a video lesson. Try to keep it short. I know I could talk forever, but try to keep it short and concise because we all have short attention spans. And then last is just let the Spirit lead you. Mm-hmm. This is something you should pray about, just like you would if you were in class. You pray and you study. Do that with your video lesson. Say, God, what do you want me to say? Even if I only have 5 minutes, what do you want me to say? And how do you want me to say it? And God will use you. God will use you. And be yourself. You don't have to dress up crazy. I mean, you can if that's what you do. That's totally fine. But don't feel like you have to do something different. Just be you. God created you. He gave you your ministry, and your kids will love it.
Amen. And that, just so everybody knows, this is Elizabeth, the way she looks every day. That's not her dressing up crazy.
No.
It's, yes. So I want to encourage everybody to follow your calling. Elizabeth said to get in the Spirit and just to follow what God has called you to do. God's not asking you to be a superhero. He's calling you to use your talents as He has called you, and then use the body that He has placed around you. It can get so intimidating when you watch other people's ministries and then you try to duplicate their ministries because their ministry is not your ministry. When I was a babe in Christ, I would see Lloyd Squires come in, and I wanted to be Lloyd Squires. I am not Lloyd Squires. I am Chris Anderson. And once I started to follow my own gift mix, it led me to being the children's editor at PPH. But Lloyd Squires wouldn't be able to be the children's editor, but he is incredible at what he does. So just do the things that God has called you to do. He's placed you within a body of believers. And sometimes it's our pride that makes us want to do it all by ourselves. But I want to encourage you that you have people around you to help you. If you don't know how to shoot video, get other people to come in with you, and then just use your skills, follow your calling. And then as far as coming up with a plan, how do you find a plan in this uncertain time? I want to encourage you, instead of trying to create a message to just throw out there and see who comes, I want to encourage you to name a few specific children or name a few specific families in your ministry, and then come up with a specific plan on how to reach just those children. And as you reach those children, I have faith that God will use that to be fruitful and to multiply and for your ministry to grow. So look for opportunities to show love by following your calling. You don't have to reinvent yourself. You just need to be you.
Right. Yes.
Very good. This is all good stuff. And Elizabeth, yeah, jump right in.
Use people, like Chris was saying, I want to kind of go off that for a little bit, for just a minute. Use people that know how to do technology. There are some young people in my church that they can make a video and they can do all kinds of crazy stuff with it, and I have no clue how to do that. So those are the people that, when I start doing that stuff in my church, I'm using the PPH videos, but when I start doing those things, those are the people who I'm going to call. Get those teenagers to do something. There are people in your church that have skills that if you don't have them, find those people and they will love to help you. Give them a piece of pizza. Say, here, I've got some candy. Will you work with me? Yeah. There are people who want to do something. They want to be used. So find the people that can help you.
That's so good. And so a couple of takeaways here. Reach out to other people in church and let's work together as a body of Christ. But the other thing we want to stress is you don't have to have everything perfect to do something. We've got kind of this story that's floated around. One of us saw a video of an elder. We think it was Georgia. We've tried to find the video, we can't. And it was this precious elder who just took her phone and sat down and started ministering to her kids with the curriculum. And I mean, it just triggered for us just this is what this is about. This is this new vision that everybody tries to step up and let's reach these kids. If we got to figure out new ways to do it and we got to step outside our comfort zone, like Chris said earlier, we're going to do it because we want to reach these kids. Good stuff. Elizabeth, I want to go back to something you referenced. You referenced the activity papers, and I'm going to kind of do this on the fly. I know I'm hoping to take questions at the end. Somebody mentioned something about the activity papers. When you purchased your summer curriculum, you should have received the link with your receipt that would give you access to those digital activity papers. There we go. That's the word I need for the month of June. We're going to evaluate month to month and see, how long we need to keep going on the digital side. If you didn't get your PDFs of the activity papers for the month of June, if you want to contact us, info@pentecostalpublishing.com, we'll get you fixed up. So I wanted to real quick address that question. But the other thing is, Elizabeth, I wanted to kick it back to you. You mentioned using those activity papers. We're in the scenario right now, we're talking about churches that aren't even in their building yet. What are some other things we can do with activity papers or something to put things in our kids' hands?
Okay, so if you're not in your building and you're using our PPH videos, and we're sending out those links. There are some other churches that have been kind of doing supplemental things. So they've been sending out packets. I knew a church that did like a flat Jesus, like kind of like flat Stanley. They said, here's your flat Jesus. And, that's to help those kids. Some of those kids might be scared. Some of those kids might be hurting. That's Jesus, and it goes with them everywhere they go. They just sent that to their kids. They've been sending out packets. I know for Easter, I think, I knew a couple of churches who put together little packages. They had some snacks, a toy or some bubbles. They had some activity papers. Yes, the activity papers go with the lesson, but they also put some other things in there that went with the lesson. Some supplemental things, some coloring pages, different things like that. So I think we can really get creative and reach out to our kids. I know, we usually prepare and have things for our kids to do in class. Turn it around, send that to their homes, drop it off on their doorstep. Obviously, you want to wear masks and gloves and all of that, but find ways that you can. Yeah, there's some pictures of some wonderful teachers building those packages, and they hand delivered those packages to those students, and the families love that. I think that's such a great way to reach out to families. That's a great way to reach out to kids and make them feel special. I know a lot of school teachers are doing these kinds of things, and why not Sunday school? I think that's great.
Love it. I'm loving these pictures. Again, this whole concept, we're going to reach out and we're not going to let these limitations stop us from still ministering to our kids. That's a great idea with the packets and getting those in the hands of our kids. Again, we've already addressed the digital version of those activity papers if you want to send those digitally, but I love that packet because, I mean, do you remember as a kid when you got mail? Oh, that was such a big deal. So, you know, we've had some churches that are mailing the activity papers and, as you said, then just drop off the packets, whatever way you do it. Let's get to those kids. Okay, now I want to switch gears. We've talked about ministering when we're not yet back in our building. We had about 49% of you that said that's where you are. We have 50% of you, so pretty well the same kind of numbers, that you are back on your campus, but you aren't in your Sunday school classrooms yet. For safety reasons, for social distancing reasons, you've not yet got back into classrooms. So for a church who's in that situation, Elizabeth, I'm going to start with you. What are some things that you can do if you're in that scenario?
If you're back in church but not back in Sunday school?
Exactly.
Okay, so again, make it special for the kids. They're going to come to church and they're not going to get to go to Sunday school. That kind of stinks. And so we want to make sure that if you're doing stuff, sending them, you can keep doing that. But if you want to make that packet or that special treat or whatever you're giving out to your kids, if you want to make that available to them as they walk in the door, or even have somebody there to hand those out as they leave so that they can do those activities at home, I think that would be a great idea. You can also do like sermon notes, write up a cute little page. You can Google sermon note outlines online. Have something for the kids to, take notes or draw pictures, or how can they interact with the lesson that they're learning in big church, and really celebrate family worship. It's not something that they get to do all the time. And I think this is a great way to, make them feel comfortable with that family worship. Just celebrate it and get them excited about it.
Yeah, I can't stress enough how important it is to let your children experience corporate worship. They're going to appreciate it like they never have before. I've heard some teachers that were lamenting that their pastor wasn't letting them have Sunday school. But don't look at this as a missed opportunity, but look at it as an opportunity. The families are getting together back in the building, and this is your opportunity. This is your time to show love and to build relationship with those children. And I want to encourage you, as you get together, 50% of you are coming together. I want to encourage you that to be intentional on how to follow up with the children. As I stated before, we have an unprecedented access to the home. In the past, parents have kept us kind of away from their children, but right now parents are inviting us to follow up with their children. So be intentional on inviting children, letting them know how you would like to interact with them during the week. Invite them to a Zoom call Tuesday night at 7, where you're going to get together and each of the kids are going to do a show and tell of the thing that brings them comfort when they go to sleep. Or just come up with an idea where the kid is coming to share. Not just coming to hear you teach, but coming to share in a community and a relationship. Look for opportunities to get one-on-one, to do Bible studies, reach out to the parents. But like I said, be intentional on opening that door for the rest of the week. Don't feel like the door closes once church is done on Sunday morning and Wednesday night, but look for intentional opportunities to get into the home and have your entire team on board. Allow your teammates to think on their feet and just take advantage of the opportunities that these kids give to reach into their hearts and just open up their hearts and let them know how special they are and how much you love them.
Excellent. All good stuff. And I'll say this, for those of you who are interacting in that chat area, I am loving what I'm seeing. I'm listening to Chris and Elizabeth, but I keep looking over there and I see all these great ideas. Even if you don't get a ton of takeaways from what we're saying, the wealth of information and ideas in this chat, I am just thrilled with what I'm hearing and the way everyone's sharing their strategies. This is what this night's about. We're going to all work together to say, what can we be doing to get to our kids? I love what you're saying, Chris, about finding ways to get to our kids and connect them. Elizabeth, we talked just a minute ago when we were talking about the scenario of a church that's not in the building at all. Okay, now we're saying we're in the building, but we're still not having Sunday school. What does that idea of a packet look like in this scenario?
I think it's really the same. I think you can take the ideas that worked when they weren't in the building and just create something for them print out their activity paper, or if you have the activity papers, if you've ordered them, have them ready for them when they come in the door. Find ways to make it special that they're in the building and they get to be in church, and yay! And just stand, I know social distancing is a huge thing, but you can stand in the lobby if you've got room, wave at your kids. Yay, I'm so glad you made it to church. It's so exciting to see you. Here's a treat from me. I miss you in class. I can't wait to see you in class. Just make it really special for them. And instead of sending it, you're handing it to them. So I think both applies.
A to-go bag. I love it.
Yes.
And Leanne, I think it's also important. I'm noticing on the questions, there's people that are having trouble getting the parents involved. What you do on Sundays will affect how involved the parents are. If you're only speaking to the kids, then the parents, they might be busy. But get the parents involved in talking about what your plans are for children's ministry. And don't make them feel bad, because I am a parent of 2 kids, and it has been exhausting through this. And so if you're trying to get me to do more, I don't have any more to give right now. And so don't make me feel bad about my limitations, but just encourage me as a parent, get with the parents, encourage them, hear their stories, and look for ministerial opportunities. You might recognize that a parent is looking for food, clothing, help, a babysitter, all these things. And so Sundays are, whenever you're getting together, is your opportunity to minister to the family. Just look for creative opportunities to break down those walls. Don't let the parents have that distance, but look for the need that the parent has, and then meet the need as the minister.
I love that you said family, because this is important for us to talk about. I want us to do another poll. So we want to put a poll up right now. We're going to ask you to rate the level of parent involvement you feel like you have. So that's poll's going to come up on your screen right now. We're going to take about 20 seconds. Please jump online, or please go to that area of your screen and go ahead and weigh in, because we're curious where you feel you are in this deal. Maybe you say, it's great. I feel like the parents are working in the homes to do discipleship and, spiritual formation, all this deal. The parents are teaching in the home and leading and in Bible study and all of that. Maybe you say, well, it's okay when we kind of push on the Sunday school side, parents, most of them participate. Maybe you say, it's pretty rough for us. We have, there are all these reasons that might be, but let us know. We're just going to take a couple of more seconds to hear from all of you about what this is looking like in your church. And then we're going to start addressing some ways that may help here. So let's take 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's end this poll and see where we came out. Okay, if you can see this, here's where we landed. 10% of you said our parent interaction is great. Most of our parents are engaged. They're teaching their kids in the home. It's awesome. 55% of you said it's okay. We have some parents that follow up at home, and when we prompt, they, get involved. But this is what it concerns us all. 33% of you would rate your parental interaction as poor, that there's not a lot of participation for parents. Now, that may be because you have a very evangelistic children's ministry, and so that's great. So we didn't put this poll together to be like, wow, you got a C-. We're not doing that here tonight, but we want to get a sense of where we all are at getting our parents to work, because we know that if our faith is just something that happens in that magic hour and a half on Sunday between 10 and 11:30, how do we compete with everything else that's being flung at our kids? We want to get to this point where faith is just who we are all the time, and that's going to take that home involvement. So, Chris, here we go. I'm going to throw you a little fun here. I want to talk about this home involvement, and one of the things I'm excited about, this actually just went live on our website a couple hours ago. So, Chris, here you go.
Right.
We have a Word of Flame home guide. This is a new resource that we rushed through development the last week and a half. I mean, we were this morning like crazy people trying to get this thing done, because we want to be able to share it tonight. If you go to the Files tab, we have a preview of this. You can download, you can see what it is we're up to. We're going to share a link. If you want to purchase this for the families in your churches, you can send them this link and encourage them to purchase it. I'm excited about this. Chris, talk to us a little bit about what we were up to with this.
Well, when we were polling the churches, what we found out is that the pastors were so occupied with just getting back in the building that family ministry was really missing. They were just happy to be back in the building, and they hadn't really thought about Sunday school. They hadn't thought about what are our families doing. And so we put together a resource that thankfully with Word of Flame curriculum, it's the same lesson, the same topic from the Bible, from toddler to preteen. So all of the kids were learning the same lesson, as was the adults. And so what we've done is we've put together a family devotional just in time for the summer. So like Leanne put that, like she said, it's on sale now, just in time for the June 1st. And it is a daily devotional that goes in line with what you are teaching on Sunday. So if you are teaching in your Sunday classrooms, which right now none of you are, according to the poll earlier, but if you were, this devotional would go along with your lesson that you would teach on Sunday. The other thing that this allows is that since you are not getting the opportunity to teach on Sundays, this family devotional gives the lesson to the parents. And so on Sunday, they can sit down with their family and they can go through a very simple lesson. It would take about 20 minutes. And then each day they find time in their day to just have a 5-minute conversation with their kids. And it's just an opportunity to bring God into everything, because that's what families are missing. When we let our social media run our lives, we forget that God is in everything that we do. And so these family devotionals are designed. And so if you're out there right now and you're like, man, I need my pastor to hear about this, share this with your pastors, because your pastors, they want your families to be ministered to, and they're not sure what has been out there. So as we have a family devotional available now, it's an awesome opportunity. Go ahead and look at that sample and let us know what you think, because we are trying to make this so that it helps you to minister to your families.
Oh, so good. We are so excited about this. And I'm loving the comments I'm seeing. Thanks for checking this out. And thanks for giving us feedback. Like Chris said, we want to hear from you about how this can be more effective. Just as you're having to find ways to readapt your ministry because of COVID, we at Pentecostal Publishing House are having to say, wait a second, our world just changed. We've got to change. That's why in a week and a half, we put this thing together, because we know you as teacher, as leader, we always wanted to be working with our parents hand in hand. I know this isn't a new concept, but this crisis is really forcing us to say, okay, but we have to do it now. It wasn't just a good idea. Now it's a necessity. So feel free to encourage your churches, the families in your church to grab this. It's $5.99. It's $4.99. Excuse me.
Wow.
It's a PDF that you can open on your phone, on your tablet. You can print out, do whatever. Whether you're at the dinner table, part of the bedtime routine, you're in the car on the way to whatever. It's just a daily conversation. And so, thank you for your feedback. We've got a little sticky note posted to the top of the chat where you can see that link if you want to copy that and send that out to families, or if you want to send that to your pastor and figure out how you want to do that. It's going to be $4.99 per family. So I hope this can be a help. All right. Thanks, folks, for checking that out. I think we've said this earlier, but it's info@pentecostalpublishing.com. If you want to contact us for information, we're going to move on, but if there's something we've not covered, again, you're welcome to put a question, but we want to make sure you have our contact info for any follow-up that you need. We want to get resources to you. That's the purpose of tonight. Okay. We're going to switch gears. Maybe one of you, but not enough to register as a full 1% of the people participating tonight are back to everything: church, Sunday school, in the building, in our classrooms, and all of that. So half of you aren't at building at all. Half of you are in the building, but not in your classroom. So all of us right now need to be thinking about, okay, what does it look like when we get back in our classrooms? Now, again, like Chris said, our pastors, I trust you're praying for your pastor. Elizabeth and I have said this almost every week when we came together to do the video. I can't imagine being a pastor right now and all of the strain that's on them. We're praying for our pastors. They've got just the job of let's just keep trying to move forward and minister. And so what's going to happen is at some point there will be that transition for Sunday school. While we want to communicate with our pastor, while we want to make sure that we never surprise them with information we communicate, it may be that for a lot of churches, there's not a big on-ramp for, okay, in 6 weeks, we're going to start Sunday school. It may be after you've been in the building and after about the third Sunday of the toddlers are crying because you're not having nursery. It may be like, whoa, we need to start Sunday school Sunday. And you may get just that much notice, like 4 days. So we need to start now thinking about that. Even if you don't have a timeline yet, you can be preparing for this. So I want to start with Elizabeth. I know we don't have time to just talk for a long time. If you can believe it, we're already at the 50-minute mark. So we're going to start trying to land the plane with this. I want you to just, Elizabeth, think of just the very top, most crucial thing we need to be thinking about to get back into our Sunday school rooms. And let me pause here and say, everybody, you should see something that says files on your screen. And in that area, you should be able to see a document, a PDF called A New Vision for Sunday School. It's the same title here. And that has 12 pages, something like that, of ideas on just this topic. For time's sake, I want to go ahead and try to just give you maybe our top 3, but a lot of your questions probably are answered in that document. So please check that document out. Okay, Elizabeth, back to you for real now. What do you think is most important? How do we get ready to get back into our Sunday school classrooms?
I see all of your questions on this side. I need ideas for reopening. So I'm going to switch my response, Leanne.
Okay.
I'm going to go with your guidelines list first.
Okay.
The first thing you need to do, if you need ideas for reopening or you're wondering what to do about the CDC guidelines, what do we do about this? Is the first thing. Go to your pastor. Sit down. Tell him, we need to come up with a list of guidelines for parents and children during Sunday school. I wish I could give everybody a list of what to do, but there are so many variables. There are so many different situations and so many different church situations that I could spend all day trying to go through. So this is what I think you should do. Sit down with him, and according to what his guidelines are from the CDC, where you are living, where your church is, come up with a list of guidelines for your teachers. So we're going to be wearing masks. We're going to wash our hands and wear gloves. We are, whatever that list is. A list for your parents and your children. Tell them, visit the bathroom before you come. These are the things that we're going to expect of you, whatever those are. I think I had some on here, like we're going to sit in our circle and we're going to not share our crayons and we're not going to eat snacks in the classroom for a while because that's just too risky. So have that list of guidelines and post that list of guidelines to your Facebook page, to your Sunday school page. Send it out to your parents before you come to church so that they know and they can see, okay, this is what we're going to expect. And turn those guidelines into something that's part of your class culture. If that's not something that you did before, well, we're back and we're doing this. Don't be scary. Don't be mean about it. Of course, kids are hard to understand how to social distance and how to not put their hands in their mouth and put their hands all over everybody. But try to make sure that you are very clear about what your guidelines are and that the parents know what to expect, the kids know what to expect, and everybody's on the same page.
And everybody's saying that they're a couple of weeks away from this. If you work with your pastor, it's possible that your pastor will let you lay out those guidelines during service with the kids and parents together. And so if you lay this out the week before, say next week we're going to be having Sunday school, but before we do, it's important that you understand that we're going to have some rules in place. And by laying it out with the parents and kids together, the kids are going to test the boundaries, and you have to have the right to say, if a child will not obey the rules that you are laying out, you have to be able to send the child back to their parents. So as long as the parents understand, these are the rules that we have. They're very important that the kids follow it. And if your kid doesn't follow it, we're going to be sending the child back to you. So, and your pastor, I think most pastors would allow you 5 minutes to lay out the ground rules that you're going to expect.
And I think, this is something because we can't over communicate in ministry. And it's one of those deals, I hear church leaders and pastors get frustrated because they say, I emailed it, I texted it, I said it in the pulpit and all that stuff, and people still didn't know. So that's kind of with our church culture, communication's difficult. But I like what you're both saying about create some clear guidelines. And because we are in a different world, and this isn't like the fundraiser you were doing 6 months ago, this is a big deal. I think, by communicating that clearly, that will set up for a good experience. So I agree, Elizabeth, the guidelines are the number one thing. And I really and truly, when I travel, the biggest question I get asked, it almost always goes back to some kind of classroom management issue. It's the same concept there. Most of those issues stem from misunderstood expectations. If we can be clear with the expectations and have clear guidelines that everybody, from the children's pastor, whatever the title is, to the teacher, to the child, to the parent, if all four of those parties are all clear before anything ever happens, this is our plan, this is our policy, this is the way that makes such a huge difference. So great point there. Chris, let me throw this question to you too. What do we need to be doing to get ready to go back to Sunday school classes?
Well, get ready for parents that are reluctant, helicopter parents, I think they're called in this day and age. The parents that they want to release their kid to you, but they don't really trust that you're going to keep their kid COVID free. And so they're going to be hovering in the background and kind of frustrating your plans. And so you need to be prepared. What are you going to do with those parents? You need to be sure that if the parents are insisting on being in the classroom, that you do background checks on the parents. And if the parent doesn't trust you to keep the kids safe, that you need to let the parent know maybe they should just keep the child with them in the time being until they feel like things are safe. Because you don't want a parent to be anxious, and you don't want anything to happen. So get ready for helicopter parents. Maybe turn it into a recruitment opportunity. If a parent insists on being in the background, bring them to the foreground. Put them in charge of snack, or find out if they play an instrument and say, hey, bring your saxophone next week and you can play Jesus Loves Me on the saxophone. And you never know, you might get a new children's minister out of it. So use it as a recruitment opportunity, right? Just get ready for parents to be, everybody's going through this all for the first time. There is no right way to go through it, and parents are going to be anxious.
Yeah, that's so true. Elizabeth, talk to us about what do we do to clean up? How does that work?
Yeah, and I think this is one question that we all need to think about, regardless if we had COVID or not. Think about what kids touch. They touch themselves, they touch other people, they touch their moms, they put their hands in their mouth, they touch all the surfaces, and then they touch another person. Kids, it's going to be so hard to socially distance. And I've seen some people say, we don't have this space to spread out. This may be where you do have online Sunday school for a while until you can be a little bit more free with your social distancing. And again, it's by region, it's by area. You really have to just see, where you are. So think about your space. Is it something that I can clean? When this whole thing started, I started looking around at all of our open areas, our play areas, and I said, how long has it been since I've sanitized the Legos? You start thinking about what really are you cleaning? So absolutely have a cleaning list. Think of all the surfaces. Think of the bathrooms. Think of the handles on the doors, the light switches. Even having kids sit on the carpet might not be a good idea because their shoes are walking all over the germs and then they're sitting on the floor. So taking time to think out all of those situations and having a plan in place to clean as much as you can. And then if there's areas that you can't clean or toys that you can't clean as well as you'd like, take those away for a while. Take those areas and close them off for a while until things are a little bit safer. And again, always follow the guidelines in your area. If you can't have room to social distance, you may not be able to have Sunday school together.
Excellent point. With social distancing, I've seen several comments about that. I'm a huge addict of duct tape. If you have to take stuff out of a classroom and use tape to create areas for this is where traffic paths are. I mean, goodness, we've seen that in all of our stores stand here. You can't be closer than that. So use some tape, move stuff out if you need to, and put tape down to show where we're going to do stuff. Two quick cool ideas I saw recently for social distancing with our kids, because what does that mean to a kid? It can't be abstract. So one quick thing, you can take a small cardboard box, big enough the kid can get in it, cut the top off that dude, slap some paper plates to the side so it's suddenly a race car, get fun with it, paint it, do fun stuff, and everybody has their race car, and you get in your car and you're there for the whole duration of the class, so you've kind of contained. Yeah, I know, I want one, right? Another one is you can take some hula hoops and spread those out at the distance you want, and then everybody has a bubble, and you stay in your bubble for class on the floor. So those are just a couple of quick ideas for social distancing, but the point is, make it fun. While we want those guidelines to be clear for parents and kids and all of that, once we get into the class, we're going to work work on creative ways to make our social distancing, to make our hand washing, to make all of that fun and still maintain a great experience for our kiddos when they come to church. One last quick thing I want to say is, while we've primarily been talking about ministering to our children, there are some of you out there that minister to youth, that teach adults. That's something we need to be talking about as well. We've got attached in the files a document called, let me say the name right so I don't mislead you. It's called Sunday School Beyond the Church Walls. And that title, we do get in some other things about dealing with COVID, but we also talk in there about what it means for our how do we minister? I'm going to tell you, if you're ministering to youth, if you're ministering to adults, small groups are critical anyway. We have seen the value of that interaction, but in this world where we've got to find new ways to minister, I think small groups are so huge. So check out that guide. Of course, that new vision for Sunday school goes in a lot more details about what we've just scratched the surface on right now. Use that to form your guidelines. You really do have a blueprint for your guidelines in that document called the New Vision for Sunday School in a Post-COVID World. Any of those attached documents you could adapt, take to your pastor, and maybe we've given you a little head start so you're not starting with a blank piece of paper. Okay, we are at, can you believe it? We're at 1 hour and 1 minute. Wow, how did this happen? This has been amazing. Thank you for your patience with our technological issues. What I want to do is ask Chris to give us an overview of the curriculum tools that can help you in ministering during the season. Again, many of you are not yet in your Sunday school classrooms, but you've got a timeline. Maybe you're going back, or maybe while you don't have a timeline, again, that scenario of you could any day now say, hey, you know what, we need to get back to Sunday school. Chris, talk to us about what's coming up. It probably doesn't feel like it because we've not been at church, but Sunday is the last Sunday of the quarter or the first Sunday of the quarter?
It's the last Sunday of the quarter, and then we head into June, right? And so in 2 Sundays, we are into the summer quarter, believe it or not. And I am so thankful for my ministry. My job as children's editor is to put together lessons to equip you, the children's minister, with a lesson. And instead of you figuring out what you're supposed to say to the children, I want to encourage you to find how you're going to say to the children. Use our curriculum. We have already prayed over this. We put it together. And as I looked through the summer material, I thought it was so cool what I feel God has done here, that Unit 1 is on the ministry of Elijah, Unit 2 is on the ministry of Elisha, and Unit 3 is on the Babylonian exile. So how appropriate is it to use the ministries of Elijah and Elisha for kids to relate on what did it feel like? What is God expecting of us during this uncertain time? Elijah and Elisha were constantly in a battle trying to figure out and trying to stand for God. And then the Babylonian exile, the Jews, all of a sudden, they're without their temple and they have to figure out how to worship God. I think we can relate to that. We don't have a church building to meet in anymore, right? At least for the time being, until late June. But I'm just saying, the children are going to be able to relate like they never have before for the Word of Flame. Now, that's Word of Flame. You also have the option of the Discipleship Project for summer. And the 3 series for the Discipleship Project, you have Contending for the Faith is the first series, and that shows how people in the Bible stood for truth and defended the faith, which your children are going to need to learn how to do that. The second series is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which shows how, even though we're far from perfect, God plans on empowering us for ministry. He wants to use us. And then the third series, it's a great series. It's called Pleasing the Lord, showing us how to live in a way that pleases the Lord. So like I said, don't try to reinvent the wheel. We've already put the lessons together for you. Prayerfully figure out what you want, which curriculum to use. Use it as a springboard. And if you're not sure and you still have questions, I encourage you to contact me personally at canderson@upci.org, and I will send you samples of all the lessons. It is my job in the body of Christ to equip you with the lessons to teach your children. So please take advantage of me. Contact me. Let me know what you're looking for, and I will try to help you to find the perfect lessons to minister to your children.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Chris. It is 1 hour and 4 minutes. Now, we've all been in those seminars where you're just hanging on every word and you're feasting on all this good stuff you're being given. And when it suddenly time's up, you're like, how did that happen? Sadly, we've also been in those classes where you're like, oh, let it in. And at the end, one person asks this question that nobody else cares about, and the whole class is held hostage. I hope you've had the former experience and that this has been helpful. And again, I love the chat because there's been such good stuff. And I hope between what we've said, what we've shared in those guides and the files, I hope all of this has been helpful. We've got a special offer for you. If you click the little offer, the thing that says offer, it may be coming up on your screen now, or you can look through. We're going to give you 20% off of curriculum if you want to use this code. It's there on your screen probably, but it's church or home -WB. You can use that to order curriculum if you haven't, because again, what Chris is saying is, only you can pray for those kids in your class. Only you can build relationships with them. As much as Chris and Elizabeth and I love ministering to children, we have no idea the kids that you have in your local church. So lean on these kinds of resources so your time can be put where no one else can. And that's praying for your kiddos, that's ministering to them, building those relationships, which now is, of course, a little more complicated. So all the more reason to have some curriculum to fall back on. So that offer will help you get some curriculum so you can be prepared for that. So between the files we've shared, between the offers, and between the chat and the good ideas others have shared, I hope this has been a blessing to you. We are so honored that you took part. Now, here's the deal. I said that about the person who holds the question and the whole class is held up. I do want to address some of the questions that you've asked. We don't have time to get to all of them. We're going to follow up with you individually if you asked a question we didn't get to. But I do want to ask some questions. If you're able to stay with this little bonus Q&A session, I think you're going to be blessed by some of these questions. But again, I understand if time constraints, you have to step out of the webinar. Some of you asked the question. So here's my first answer. Yes, we are going to have this recording available to watch later. If you want to share it with someone who wasn't able to watch it, we're going to get this link to you. So we will certainly take care of that. But I do want to throw Chris and Elizabeth a few questions here. I'll try not to trip them up. But those of you who can stay online, I'm just going to take a couple of questions and share these that I think can be a blessing to you. I saw earlier today, I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but I saw earlier in our session, someone asked a question. I'm going to start with you, Chris. Someone said, we're thinking about trying the discipleship project for summer because we're probably going to be going back to Sunday school in more of a kids' church format where we're all in one big room with the whole kids. And so their question is, would the discipleship project work in that kind of environment?
It will, yeah, absolutely. The elementary, early and late elementary level for the discipleship project, you can use for the kids church, the super church. And if you have questions about whether that would work for you, like I said, contact me directly, and I'll send you some of the lessons, and you can go through it and see if those lessons are going to work for your teaching style. Usually the discipleship project, I have found that the experienced teachers love it because it's very diversified. It's like a Swiss Army knife, and the lessons you can kind of craft it to be whatever it is you want it to be. So yeah, I do recommend the discipleship project for that scenario. Yes.
And I would even add in there one thing that might also be helpful when you buy a kit of the discipleship project, and that's probably a point of clarity for people that aren't familiar with it. It comes in kits as opposed to Word of Flame where you kind of order a la carte. Discipleship project comes in a kit so that you've got some videos built in. You have a few things included in that kit of the discipleship project is a children's church guide, a digital version.
Absolutely.
So that's another point too, that yeah, you're exactly right with whoever asked the question. Would the discipleship project work if you're going back to a kids church format? Yeah, because it's actually got a kids church leader guide included digitally in your kit. So hopefully that helps whoever asked that question.
And Leanne, also if I could add that some teachers, I've noticed that since the COVID crisis has come in, a lot of teachers have turned to the Kids Power Hour as an option. So Kids Power Hour is a great option for the larger classroom where you're ministering from ages 4 to 12.
Good point. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, and somebody else has mentioned that as well, so that's good to know. Okay, so let's ask this question related to that. Our friend John asked, when we get back to church, it's kind of a question I could have even asked before. When we get back to church, do you anticipate we probably go back into more of like that kids church style, or is the smaller class setting better? How do we make that decision between going back big or going back into classrooms? Either of you have any, I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer, but any ideas on that?
I think I think it might be smarter to do the smaller classes if you can. because they say to not gather in groups of more than 10 or 15, depending on where you're at. And I think it might be easier to separate into smaller groups and have, if you have the room, to go into classrooms with smaller groups. Now, if you can't, and you have one big room or two big rooms or something, and you have a bunch of kids together, I like some of the ideas that Leanne has shared, and giving kids their own space and saying, this is your space. If the kids gather for worship all together, they can still sing apart, sitting in their circles, in their hula hoops, in their cars, at their chairs, at their desks, whatever it is. They can still worship and still participate as a group, leading them as a group, but still kind of distance out. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
And Leanne, I also want to encourage, I hear all of this talk. I am excited about getting back together, and what does Sunday school look like at church? I want to re-emphasize that there is an opportunity we've never had before to intentionally reach into the homes. So don't just figure out how to have church on Sundays, but figure out how to keep the homes open so that even if you aren't seeing the kids like you'd like to on Sundays, that you have an opportunity throughout the week. I really feel like that is the door that God has opened through this COVID crisis. So as children's ministers, please be intentional about making sure that family visiting the homes and getting into the children's lives, that door stays open, and don't just fall into the trap of just going week to week and how do I get together on Sunday?
Yeah, I think I've said this already tonight, but I think what we can't do is just say, oh, good, we're back to our building. I can go right back to where I was January 3rd. Whew. No, this is the time. I mean, let's face it. If you just decided any old quarter to walk into church and be like, you know what, such and such isn't working, we're changing it. Well, then you've got, oh, wait a second. So I'm kind of talking to leaders right now. It's really tough to make a change when you've just been, there's nothing, whatever. But we've got to make so many changes right now anyway, with social distancing, with safety, new cleaning procedures. This is a time I think we've all stressed to reevaluate what's working and what's not. And now while we've got to change other stuff, let's change the stuff that really wasn't working and do that better. And some of that may be, like you've said, Chris, to say, okay, not just what do I do better in the church building, which is good and we need to do, but also how can we reach beyond the church as well? Very good.